Good afternoon, friends. I am Danielle Love, the founder of the Sacred Sexual Energy Body of Work, the creator of the Sacred Sexual Energy Experience, SEX for short, and as many of you know me, the founder and creator of Diabetes Dominator Coaching. Coming to you today for the fifth day in a row of live streams. Very excited because this is something that I've been intending to do for some time now and feeling like I'm in the groove, and it feels really good, getting a lot of really great feedback from the topics that I've been covering, which are all about many different areas of self-love, body love, appreciation, understanding and awakening to our divinity, and how all of these things essentially come from the creative force behind all of that, which is our sacred sexual energy. So today I am here to talk about menstruation. And I think at this point, if you've been following me for a while, certainly through my Live Unapologetically posts in July, there's probably no surprise to you that it is my jam to speak openly and honestly and clearly without apology about the very real aspects of living as a human being in the world that we live in today, and shedding light on these topics that are for some reason societally taboo to speak about, however, have deep, meaningful, lasting effects on our mental, emotional, spiritual wellness. Our holistic wellness are completely influenced by these topics. Sex, death, menstruation, all kinds of things like that. So today I'm here to talk about menstruation. And the reason I'm talking about it is because, again, having been a coach for 11 years, 10,000 plus hours of working with human beings, majority of them being women, however, I've had my fair share of male clients as well. There are always discussions about menstruation, about how to relate to this cycle, this natural, holy cycle, sacred cycle of our physical body, and how we can interact with that in such a way that feels loving, that feels accepting, that feels gracious, versus how what I've experienced both personally and professionally, that we are almost conditioned to, first and foremost, like sweep it under the rug, like don't talk about it, don't express yourself about it. There's definitely a lot of shame around it. And further, that like there's almost like resentfulness about it. Like, and I know this from personal experience. So just to share a little bit of my personal journey on this whole menstruation, being a female, having female reproductive organs that work in the ways that they do, in the first, I'd say the first 3/4 of the time of my life since I began menstruating, I had a horrible relationship with it. I had incredible amounts of pain, so much so that I used to pass out from holding my breath. Just thinking about it makes me feel tight in my chest because the pain was so intense and so incredible and so long lasting. And there have actually been a couple of times that I've even gone to the hospital because I legitimately thought I was dying because of how much pain the menstrual cycle was causing me. My husband actually accompanied me to the hospital at one point. This is many years ago, probably about 10 years ago, because of how intense the pain was. And I was at my wit's end and I didn't know what to do about it. And then when you get into a medical profession where there are male doctors, which is the, whatever you want to label it, fortunate, unfortunate, or neither, or something else entirely, every time that I would be there for something like that, the energy that I would receive from a male medical professional about it was that I was overreacting, that I was over exaggerating, that I was somehow, my pain tolerance level was, and listen, if you know me at all personally, my pain tolerance level is through the roof. Not that I'm bragging about that. However, having over 40 hours of tattoo work that I consciously chose for myself, plus multiple piercings on my body that I opted for as well, I have a very high tolerance for pain. And so I think us, and I say us as women that have a menstrual cycle, we're used to it being almost like an annoyance, both to ourselves and to the people around us, because that's the way we've been conditioned to view it and to treat it. Well, I'm here to tell you, at least from my own experience, again, from my evolution personally, and also that of helping so many women reshape and change the perspective and the beliefs that they have around what their menstrual cycle is and what it means to them and how they can interact with it in a different way, that now, although I do still experience pain, I would say for the last 7+ years, the amount of pain that I've experienced is extraordinarily less than anything that I used to have on a regular basis. And it's because of the ways in which I choose consciously and intentionally to view my menstrual cycle from. The perspective with which I view it is completely different. And if you think about it, from the way I described it and the way it's mostly seen and viewed in the world that we live in today, usually we're fighting with it. We're resenting it. We're like, oh my God, it's time for this again. Oh my, I don't feel good. I don't feel like dealing with this, all this other stuff. But what I've found is that the same way when we start treating our bodies as sacred vessels assigned to us by the divine, that changes how we view our menstrual cycle, because again, that's part of that divine design. And when we honor it, when we hold space for it, when we begin to anticipate its occurrence, right, by using technology, or many people might, before technology existed, used some sort of regular calendar, and maybe you still do, nothing wrong with that at all. But the conscious and intentional tracking of it, I use an app, a free app called Flow, FLO, and I track it every month. That way you can get a little bit more in sync with your cycle length and the symptoms that you're feeling and the experience that you're having. But what it also does, if you're willing, is it gives you the time to plan a gracious and spacious space for yourself to allow your menstrual cycle to occur without any anger or fear or resentment or frustration or any negative emotion around it that we all have experienced, I'm assuming, because every single woman that I've ever spoken to about it has had negative experiences around it. So for me, what that means is a couple things. So these are kind of where the tips come in. These are my professional and personal tips that I share with every client that I have that's a female that deals with this, and that has changed many, many women's lives. And that number one is to anticipate as close as you can to the time that it's going to occur, and then intentionally clear your schedule as much as possible on the day or days, maybe 2 days. For me, the first day is the most intense day. So I will clear my schedule. I will do as much as I can within the power that I have to ensure that I don't have many live interactions that I need to have that day, that I will have as much space on my calendar to simply be, so that I can do whatever I feel is necessary to care for my vessel, to steward my vessel on that day where this big energetic release is going to occur, right? Because no matter how you look at it, when the menstruation begins, you are having a massive release of both physical and mental and emotional energy. And to try to cram that into a day where you're running here, you're running there, you have plans to go to the gym, and you're taking the kids here, and you're doing this and you're doing that, it is very difficult to experience the cycle in a compassionate and loving and graceful way when your schedule does not allow for that to happen. So number one is creating space on your schedule specifically to honor your vessel, to honor your body and its cycles. Number two is to, now I know this goes against what we normally feel like doing, but it's to do some level of fasting. Now I'm not going to get into like, oh, you have to do this and this is the specific protocol. No, because again, I'm giving you my tips with the innate knowledge that in order for this to work for you, you're going to have to experiment lovingly and compassionately with yourself to see how your body and your being feels about each of these different things, and work that into your own life in the ways in which it works for you. But for me, what I experienced, and again, it's both spiritual, and then it gets right down to the pragmatic, just like I am. When your intestines and your bowels are full, which happens more if you eat a lot more food, it presses against your reproductive organs because they're all compacted, right, all in there. And that pressing of the full intestines and the full bowels causes much more extreme cramping than if your bowels and your intestines are fairly empty. So my kind of protocol is that when I know it's the day before I think my cycle is going to begin, I intentionally eat very lightly. Now, I don't like restrict myself or like go on any crazy like, oh, I can't eat this or I can't eat that. It's more of like, I fully understand that the internal workings of my body feel better and have the spaciousness to operate more freely and without hindrance if I don't shove them full of food right before this release happens. And oftentimes we know that the food that we choose around our menstrual cycles can be what I call junky food. Like it's just not really food. It's like food like items, you know, things like wrapped in cellophane and all this, like, you know, maybe it's fast food or whatever it is that you often might crave. So it's a bit of a shift. However, my experience in the level of pain that you experience in cramping when your body is not filled with food versus when it is, it's night and day, and it's 100% worth it, which is where I am now in my life, where when I know my menstrual cycle is going to start, I'm just like, okay, cool. Fruits, vegetables, that's about, you know, nuts, seeds, beans, like just light foods that don't take a lot of processing. That's really what I'm going to have the first, like the day before and the day of, because I know how much different the feeling is, and it's just so worth it. The second thing is super hydration. Extra hydration. I'm a massive proponent of hydration on a regular basis. I'll probably do another live about that at another time. But if you've worked with me in any capacity, you already know how I am about water. Extra hydration just keeps your system lubricated, all of your organs, everything working with as much ease as it possibly can. And then the third thing, which is again another kind of taboo thing, but I love to talk about ways to have more pleasure, to receive more pleasure, and to reduce or eliminate pain. And in this case, we're talking about physical pain. However, for me, one of the best and most effective ways to relieve menstrual pain in the moment is to have an orgasm. And you can Google that. You'll see it on WebMD. It's actually scientific, because what's happening when you're feeling extreme cramps in your uterus is that it's tense. The tissue is tense, the muscle is tense, whatever it is all made of is super tense. And when you have an orgasm, it causes an actual opening and closing. It actually forcefully relieves that tension. And it may only be temporary, right? Like you may have the orgasm and then maybe 30 minutes later, you're still feeling some pain. However, if you're in a high level of pain and you can get that level of relief for 30 minutes, like, it's a no-brainer. And so for me, I'm not usually in the mood to have an orgasm when I'm in that level of pain. So it does take a bit of, well, for me, and I don't know how it will be for your experience, but it's getting yourself a toy that works really quickly, stimulating your mind, using whatever stimulants you need to like get that orgasm quickly. Because yes, it's pleasurable because orgasms are obviously pleasurable, but for me, this is a means to an end, whereas normally an orgasm is not necessarily being used in that capacity. But during menstruation, all I can say is I urge you, highly encourage you to try this out for yourself, and to see the relief that you can experience with using these different tools and tactics. So in the Sacred Sexual Energy Experience program, we're going to dive pretty deeply in one of the modules about honoring our cycles, our body's cycles, and that's going to include menstruation, and we're going to have quite a bit more explorative self-work. That's just one of the things that we're going to go through in the program. The program is kicking off on October 11th, and the application process is currently open and happening, and I'm very grateful for everybody who has looked at it and filled it out already. And yeah, I'm putting the link to the application in the comments if my computer will allow me to do so. And yeah, if you have any questions, I highly encourage you to fill out the application because the application is long for a reason. Again, I will say this a lot over the next month or so as I continue to go live. The Sacred Sexual Energy Experience container that I'm curating is very transformative. It is high touch. It is very community based, and we will be supporting each other very deeply over that 8 weeks. And so this is not a space for everyone. That's why the application process is so important. And it lets me know that the person that's thinking about joining is really ready and willing to show up for themselves, first and foremost, to experience the level of love and honor and desire and pleasure that they feel for themselves and really embrace that. And so that is such an important part of this process. So I look forward to seeing more people filling out the application and to chatting with you. And if you have any questions that the application does not answer, please feel free to DM me and let me know. And also please feel free to share this video anywhere that you might think that there are women that could use highly experienced, both personal and professional tools to alleviate menstruation symptoms and also to become more at one and accepting and loving of the cycle itself. Because when you're fighting with anything, the environment and the energy that you're creating is harsh. And when you are accepting of something, even if you may not love it fully or enjoy it, but when you just simply release the fighting and you allow it to be and you create some space for it to exist, just that simple shift is so powerful that it will change your entire life. And so those kind of simple yet extraordinarily powerful shifts are the entirety of the Sacred Sexual Energy Experience container. So I look forward to hearing any comments that anybody has about this. I would love to hear about your experience with menstruation. Have you had any tips or experiences that have helped you become in a better relationship with your menstrual cycle, or anything else you might have to say? So happy Friday, and I look forward to seeing you here live on Monday, because I'm going to come live on Monday and see you then. All right, happy Friday. Talk to you later.